Is it a contradiction to say that we're reconciled to God, provided that we stay rooted? That we're in God's favor, provided that we are steadfast? What if we have moments when faith is hard? Here's some more context that I went to find out later after Bible study this week about what was going on in this letter to the Colossians that has helped me, I think, understand some of the nuance of Paul's words. Paul had heard that this church in Colossae, which was in part of what is now Turkey, that as part of their Christian practice, they were trying out some extreme ascetic practices of self-denial, like intense fasting, as a way of trying to be more spiritual and to get closer to God. Almost as if they were trying to transcend their earthly, bodily existence, to be so purely spiritual as if that could earn them favor or points with God. And Paul wants them to know that they're already reconciled to God. They don't have to try so hard. God's got them. God's love isn't conditional on the intensity of their prayer practices. And because God's got them, they can live differently. They can live with assurance. The provided that in this letter, the if in this letter, it's not to make the people afraid that they can lose God's favor. They can't. But maybe instead, Paul is encouraging them to really let the good news of God's favor sink in, to keep on remembering it so that it shapes how they live and interact with each other. Maybe he's inviting them to remember again and again that Christ has already transformed them in the way that counts. They are already redeemed, already reconciled to God, and they don't have to take on extreme practices or deny their bodies food or worship in a prescribed form or frequency or go great lengths to get closer to God, because God has gotten close to them. They don't have to strain to transform themselves, because Christ has already transformed all of creation. Their part is choosing each day to believe that God has reconciled them, that God has claimed them as God's own. Their task is simply to ground themselves in that good news of what God has done for them in Jesus. That's the provided that, the invitation that Paul is urging them toward. That encouragement to root themselves in that, to know that they're already, God's got them already.